Today we're going to talk about developing an image taken on a cloudy day. Now this is kind of a famous scene, Bass Harbor headlight in Acadia National Park. Usually a great sunset location. The sunset's behind the lighthouse, lights up the sky. And that's what we were intending to shoot, but mid-afternoon the clouds came in and our hopes for a sunset were pretty much over. But it's not a complete loss. This image here still has some excellent potential. Now, I've got it in Lightroom. I'm going to press the D key to move over to the Develop module. The first thing I'm going to do here is, in my tool palette, I'm going to start on the left-hand side with the crop tool. First thing I need to do is straighten my horizon. If I can capture it straight, all the better, but if not, using this little angle tool to draw a line across the horizon will straighten it up quite nicely. I can just double click to set that. Next thing I have to do is take a look at any dirt or dust on my sensor. I know I've got one spot up here, right here, so I'm going to grab the next tool over, the spot removal tool, and I'm going to go over the top of it and click. Lightroom's going to assess that area and find something that it can fill in with. So it's chosen a little spot here and pasted it over there. Now there's another spot down here in the water. There's actually two little spots. So I'm going to click on the first one and then I can click and drag on the second one because it's a little bit lumpier. And then I'll click done. So here we are. We've cleaned up our sensor dust. We've straightened our horizon. Now it's time to really get into the meat of developing. So the first thing I might do here is bring down my highlights. That's our sky. And just by doing that, you can see that we've increased some drama there. All of a sudden, we start to see the texture of the clouds much better. It looks stormier. The next thing I'm going to do is open up my shadows. This whole area of the rocks and the trees here are kind of in shadow, a little bit too dark for me to see clearly. So I'm going to boost up my shadows. Now along with that, I need to put a little bit more contrast back in. I'm taking a look at my histogram up here. I could actually drop my blacks down a little bit to have a little bit sharper shadows in these cracks here where they should be solid black. Now I'm going to jump into some local adjustments before I go much further. Our main focus on this lesson is the sky here because it's a little dreary. So I'm going to go over here to the adjustment brush, and this is like a paintbrush. If we scroll down to the bottom here, we've got different choices for our brush, our size, our feather, our flow. We also have this option called auto mask, and what that will do is as we're painting along this tree line, as long as we keep the crosshairs in the sky, it shouldn't paint over the trees. Now one thing we have to watch out for is it will probably paint a little bit of this lighthouse because it's the same color as the sky. But it's no big deal because we can always go back and edit our paintbrush. So I'm going to start in the upper right hand corner here, and I'm going to click and hold down, and I'm going to drag, keeping those crosshairs in the sky, not on the trees. And you don't have to be particularly careful with this, but you do want to keep those crosshairs, as I said, into the sky area. Otherwise, it will start painting over the trees, and we really want to keep it exclusively on the sky here. So I go down there, and I'm going to go along the bottom. Now, nothing's happened. Visually, we can't see that anything has changed. But if we go down here to the bottom, there's a little Show Selected Mask Overlay, or you can press the O key. And it will show you what you just did. You've selected, basically, the sky, excluding the trees. It's done a very nice job masking there. So I'm going to continue painting over the sky. I'm just going to fill this whole area in. And this red overlay is just to help us know where we've painted and where we haven't. So if I hold down the Alt key, I get the eraser tool. I can see I went down into the ocean here a little bit, so I'm just going to grab my eraser and clean that up a little bit. I can use my bracket keys to diminish brush size, but not my eraser size, so I'm going to go over here to the eraser, crank this down a little bit, and erase out what got onto the lighthouse. Looks good there. It's pretty good down there. So now I'm going to press the O key again, and that will get rid of my overlay view, and it will show me what the sky is actually looking like. Now I can go up to this palette of different options. I could decrease my exposure. I could increase my contrast. I can pump up my highlights. Decrease my shadows. Up with the clarity. Up with the saturation. How's this looking? Do we want to go a little bit more blue with the sky? A little bit less green? Now if we scroll back down to the bottom here where we had our brush options, just below that we have a reset button and a close button. But over here there's this little rather nondescript switch, and this turns on or off the adjustment we just made. So if we click it, we can see our sky used to look like that, and this is the adjustment we made. Puts a lot more drama in the sky there. So I'll close the brush tool for now. And we can do a side-by-side comparison. So here's our original, and here's our current situation. Now there's more we can do here that will really boost this image. We take our brush tool again. This time we're going to be focusing on the rocks. I'm going to scroll down and make sure auto mask is turned off because I don't want it to try and mask out these rocks. I want to do it myself so that we have a nice soft edge where it feathers into the rest of the scene. Right there. So if we want to see the overlay, we press O. You can see we missed a little spot here. Press O again to get rid of that. Now the adjustment I want to make here is I want to add warmth to the rocks. I want to increase the exposure some. I want to up the contrast, up the clarity, and the saturation. I see a few little highlights coming in here that look a little unnatural, so I'm going to drop my highlights down a little bit. Maybe bring clarity down a little bit less. And that looks pretty good. We could go actually a little bit warmer just for dramatic effect. So that took care of the rocks. Now we've got two more things to tackle with our brush tool. The first one will be the lighthouse. So we'll go over here and we'll click New. We'll get a new brush. We're going to turn auto mask back on, and then I'm going to zoom in on the lighthouse. And my chief concern with the lighthouse is its white walls, which look a little dingy in this exposure. So with a moderately sized brush, auto mask turned on, I'm going to go through here and attempt to mask out just the walls of this lighthouse. So I do this pretty quickly. I'm not too concerned with this one. I'm not going to spend too much time fine-tuning this, but you definitely could spend quite a bit of time nuancing a mask. I'm going to turn on my overlay so I can see if I've missed anything. Looks pretty good. I'm going to put a couple dots in these trees. Down here, far side of the door jamb. See how it's done down here, a little bit more down here. And that should be good. So we'll go back, turn our overlay off, zoom back out, and now it's time to make the adjustments on this brush. I'm going to increase my warmth, my temperature, to bring that lighthouse out of the blues into the whiter colors. Maybe a little bit more exposure on that, whiten it up a little bit more. That should be good. We could add a little clarity to it. Definitely don't want to add saturation because we don't want to throw the color cast off. Now, this gets a little bit surreal because our lighthouse is brighter than our sky, and our rocks are, it's a little bit artistic here, but for dramatic effect, we're going to go with it. So our second thing that we have to do with a brush tool before we have a finished image is the trees. Now we're going to check, make sure auto mask is selected. We're going to go in here and click on the trees, hold down, and just paint over the trees. These trees up here, all the way to the top, and all the way out to the rocks. Pressed O, see how it did? Did pretty good. A little bit on the building, a little bit on the sky there, not too bad. I'll turn the overlay off, and we'll go up here. They're a little bit blue and a little bit milky, so I'm going to increase the warmth, tint them a little bit more green, maybe bring up the contrast and the exposure. Clarity a little bit, saturation a little bit. I think that looks fairly good. So let's go back to our comparison view, and you can see our before is a rather dull exposure. Down here we've got our finished image. We've got lots of contrast in the sky, lots of saturation in the sky. We've got this bright lighthouse. We've brought up our trees and our rocks, give this great warmth in the foreground, leading in to the lighthouse. So that's our finished product. And it only took 14 minutes. Okay, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.